Alrighty, guys. We are here. Week 4 is now in the books. It was an exciting week, especially with the injuries, especially with a lot of late week injuries that we definitely did not hit on the pod last week because they pop up on Friday and we're just like, well. But guys, Richmond, let's start with you. How'd your fantasy week go, and how do you feel about Khalil Herbert, who was your flag plant of the week last week?
My fantasy week was disastrous. Uh, Capped off by Allen Robinson needing to score me 3 points. He scored me 2.4, I believe. So
That's high.
that,
That's high for him.
yeah, yeah, that was a good week for him. So not a good week for me. And Khalil Herbert, he's on the Bears, so he did well, but not quite as strong as a flag plant as I would have liked.
Yeah, he ended up with 10 and a half half point PPR, half PPR points. I think I said that right. So not bad. He didn't kill you if you played him, but just definitely wasn't that. Ugh. Yeah, he went off. I think. But you're right. He's for the Bears, so I don't know if you can really expect that for anyone.
I think Justin
Um,
Fields threw more this week, so
man, we can only hope. Uh, Patrick, how was your fantasy week, and how do you feel about Chris Olave, who was your flag plant of the week last week?
Yeah, doing well in dynasty leagues. 5-1 this week. I think I'm officially tanking one of them, and then officially tanking a redraft league. Apparently, not 1-1. But other than that, pretty good across the board. Lave, for me at least, came through. Pulled him off a taxi squad in 2 dynasty leagues and showed up. Did what I needed him to do. So less than the previous week, but still a solid performance considering Winston was out. But it looks promising with Dalton behind center, which may be the case this week.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Olave still was doing his thing out there. Eric, how
Yeah,
about you? How was your fantasy week? And Rashad White actually seemed to kind of come through. He won me a little money in DFS at least.
Hey now. Yeah. The best I've always said about Rashad White that when it's coming, it'll be here. And it was here. Last week, Rashad White showed up and played the Tony Pollard role, secondary to Leonard Fournette. So I think we'll be able to see a lot more of Rashad White going forward. And last week was really, his cheap play week. In Dynasty, I made a big move. I was 3-0 in a league and half PPR, and I traded 2023 firsts and 3 seconds for Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, and Trey Lance. So hopefully they're just going to hibernate the next couple of weeks, get healthy for the playoffs, and I'll have a chance.
What a trade! Oh my God, that's said it was 5 first.
2 seconds.
5 firsts, 3 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
3.
Okay, that's
It's gonna be sad when you lose.
I might, yeah. At this rate. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, we'll mention Jonathan Taylor later, a little bit later in the show, but at least for Thursday night, it's not looking too hot for you. All right, my fantasy week was also disastrous. I'm not entirely sure how many I won, but I'm pretty sure I only won like 5 out of like my 19 leagues, and just scored like 40 points in some leagues. Ramondre was my flag plant of the week. He didn't do bad, but he just kind of did what he does, around 11 points. So if you played him, you were sitting okay, but didn't really hurt you, but didn't really get you that win either. We did also mention Andy Dalton last week, and he did all right. He was the QB 22 on the week. I mean, in Superflex, that's playable. I mean, in one QB, I don't think we were saying to play him. The worst of the week was Richie James, who, Eric, as you pointed out in our show note, Tony scored more points, fantasy points, than him this week, and Tony did not play. So Richie James had negative points. So I don't think you can trust any Giants receivers at this point. But let's get into kind of the big news, and it's kind of died down since last week because it was the Thursday night game. But Tua with his head injury, and he's in concussion protocol. It was a real scary injury. But Patrick, let's get your thoughts on kind of how that all went down and how the week before kind of may have led into it. And apparently they fired the independent neurologist.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yep. Yeah, so it's actually been a hot topic in the clinic this week, actually, talking to a few avid football fans about it. That Sunday game, that initial back injury, I think last week we talked about it. We all kind of agreed it looked a little concussion-like symptoms. Now, this is where we understand it comes to how he talks to the neurologist and that team. You know, you can pass these checks, tell him he's not feeling any symptoms, then it's a judgment call. I mean, you can argue he made a bad judgment call letting him play on the short week. But if he doesn't suffer that hit and plays that whole game, we're probably not having any discussion about this at all, and the concussion protocol is not being discussed again whatsoever. It's super unfortunate. He's going to be out for a few more weeks. I've seen a couple of other neurologists kind of advocating for him not to go back to playing football. But I mean, he's going to take his time, and we're just going to have to see how he progresses through weeks, and hopefully whichever independent neurologist they hire this time has faith in what he believes and clears him if he sees fit. But I think there's going to be league-wide caution now with this concussion protocol. That's the ripple effect I'm seeing outside of just Tua's. A couple other players this weekend.
It definitely looks like they're changing their whole concussion protocol to basically take it out of the hands of trying to go off symptoms and stuff like that. And something as obvious as that, like Tua took a hit to the head, was wobbly. Then he gets back there and he said, "Oh, it was my back that was making me wobbly." They're making it where you can review the film and just say, "No, you're not going back in, at least today." And I mean, even going forward, he still might not have actually been put in protocol. It's hard for us to say if the independent neurologist actually did anything wrong or not. We're not in the room, so who knows?
Yeah, and personally, that's just for me watching all the analysts talk all week. I don't want to say they were wrong-footed, but unless you're in that room, you're in that discussion, it's hard to speak of what decision was actually made. It's an unfortunate circumstance what happened on Thursday. Like, that was a scary injury. But, I feel bad for Tua, and hope all is well in the future for him.
Yep. Eric, you got any thoughts on it?
My lizard brain is speaking, and I think that a real possibility is that the league sent down a memo and basically said, be super conservative with all possible concussions going forward. I just feel like, and this is totally subjective, but I feel like there were a lot more concussion labels given out this week, especially to quarterbacks. And I feel like more often than not, they would have been played again. But they were not able to go back on the field this week. And I think that we might see more of that going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Richmond, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I think that concussions are going to be something to have more caution with for the rest of the season. As far as players getting back out onto the field, I don't think they're not going to let that happen again, or even have there be a perception that they let somebody back onto the field too early. I think I see a lot of concussions at work, and I know how long it takes most of my patients to get back from a concussion, and to be back through a concussion protocol within 1 week assumes that you started the concussion protocol the day after the concussion and made it through. So,
yeah,
from my perspective, it's hard to see how some of these things worked out. But like Pat said, I wasn't there. I can't say how things happened. All I can say is my experience is that's not great.
I agree too. I see quite a few concussions. I mean, I know I'm just a high school athletic trainer, but I see quite a few concussions. And let me tell you, people, the amount of concussions that are back in a week is slim to none. I mean, even getting symptom free within a few days is hard a lot of the time. So yeah, I know these are professional athletes, but yeah, I'm with all y'all. I think the NFL is going to kind of crack down on this, and you're very right. It's all about the perception for them, and they don't want people to think they are putting their players in harm's way. So they're going to crack down on this.
And just a quick example of that: Cameron Brate got pulled for concussion, went back in for a brief moment, and then got pulled from the game. So again, I think that's one of those things looking forward. If a player has a concussion label next to their name, you might want to just have a little hesitation playing on.
And he wasn't even wobbly or anything. He just kind of got up slow.
Yep.
So but yeah, Teddy Bridgewater's going to take over for Tua going forward until Tua is healthy enough to be back. I don't really think that's going to drop the Dolphins offense too much. I mean, a lot of it's quick hit stuff, get it in the Tyreek and Jalen Waddle's hands and let them do work. So I don't think there's going to be too much of a hit to the Miami Dolphins offense as a whole. Does anyone think there is?
I could definitely see them running less plays per game, and that's less opportunities for fantasy points.
That's fair.
But Teddy B, he has an arm. He can launch it the same as, Tua for the most part. Hit Tyreek for a deep ball, hit Jalen Waddle for a deep ball. So I think that will always be there. But, when it comes to pass attempts per game, even rush attempts per game, you might see those numbers shift down a little bit.
For sure. Well, let's move on, guys. You know what? Let's go ahead and talk about Hoyer, because that was definitely one that seemed like it was a kind of not that bad of a hit, but he kind of hit his head on the turf, and they kind of ruled him out with a concussion. And he was a non-participant today. Obviously, Mac Jones is hurt with his high ankle sprain that we talked about a lot last week. He was a limited participant today. How do we feel that Zappy kind of coming in under the circumstances? Oh, Eric, thumbs down. Okay, Eric, tell me about that.
No, I have very little opinion. He just was pretty ineffective as an offensive playmaker. And, I would be very wary starting any receiver for this offense. And I think I would be really shaky playing their running backs going forward.
That's fair. Patrick, you kind of seem to maybe just not agree.
The running back part. Remember the Buffalo game last year? Mac Jones had 3 pass attempts.
That was also a special circumstance.
Circumstances, but I'm just saying, it's Bill Belichick. I mean, I'm not going to probably play. I don't have much invested in New England running backs this season anyways. But, again, if you're tight on your lineup, I trust Bill. I think he'll figure it out.
I agree. I think Bill figured it out. I'm not really worried about the running backs as a whole.
And they have Detroit this week, so I mean, those games have been shootouts.
Okay, that's valid.
So
yeah.
I mean, running back wise,
lock and load any offensive player from New England is what I just heard. Anyway. Richmond, what do you think about Daniel Jones and his ankle injury, and then another QB concussion with Tyrod Taylor, who was a non-participant today? What's going on with those Giants quarterbacks?
So, I mean, I think the Tyrod Taylor thing, we've already spoken to I don't see him coming back to play. Daniel Jones, from what I saw today, he's likely to be able to suit up this week, from the reports that I saw today at least. That would be my bet. I wouldn't hope for Tyrod Taylor to come back. And then if Webb Davis ends up being the starter there, I don't think I would roll with Webb Davis as my starter. I'd say it's Daniel Jones or bust for that team. However, sleeper pick, Kadarius Toney, quarterback, New York Giants.
Dear God.
All right, you guys can laugh at me. You guys can laugh. It's fine. All right.
That's
He was a quarterback for Florida. Came into college as a quarterback, moved to receiver. He had a nice pass to Sterling Shepard last year, trick play. But if you're going to throw Saquon in at Wildcat, why not have both back there in the backfield? Something
That's
to
true.
think about.
I like that.
if
I did
Kadarius
hear,
can get healthy enough to do that.
yeah,
What-
I did hear some interesting context. I heard that they had a practice squad quarterback lined up and in the hotel near the playing near the practice field, and they sent him home. So they had a guy ready to replace Daniel Jones, or at least just be on the team for the game, and they sent him home. So that's a probably pretty good indicator that they have a quarterback in the room already who's going to play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they definitely started to run that Wildcat with Saquon quite a bit after when it went out. All right. The GOAT himself, Tom Brady, is dealing with a right shoulder and a right finger injury and also going through a divorce. So, Patrick, how do we feel about Brady right now?
Well, watching that game, it was a good defensive play. You saw him mouthing it on side that he missed that blitz coming. He got drilled pretty hard, but yeah, I mean, he played the rest of the game. He looked fairly solid the rest of that game. So, he's getting a couple more of his guys back healthy. It's Tom Brady until he doesn't perform. I'm going to trust if he's out there, he's going to show up and he's going to connect. So I'm still rolling with him. I have him in a few leagues. I'm going to roll him out.
He is starting to get to that age where it is tough for a man to perform, though.
Well,
So-
he's gotta show Giselle what she's missing. Okay, so
You tell him, Pat.
he's going to come out scorched earth MVP season rest of the way.
Giselle's going to end up with some 22-year-old NFL player. So,
Zach Wilson.
Wait,
he
did you
prefers
say
a
that too?
little older than Giselle.
he got that dog in him.
He could do worse.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. Now I don't even know where to go now. Anyway, are we worried about Tom Brady at all?
Kind of.
Eric?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I think that Tom Brady's one of his greatest, skill sets has been his tenacity, his willingness to win and be so, accurate at a high level in all phases of his game. So I've been wondering, with the news of this coming out, how much this is playing into, his ability to practice. He does have new members on the offense, and just his ability to be locked in during the game. So, I mean, Pat, you're right. Like last game, he scored a lot of points for you if he was on your fantasy team. He hasn't dropped the ball yet, but this could get uglier going forward. And I think at least when it comes to Tom, where his mindset is one of his greatest strengths, it might, be a chink in the armor to look for.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right.
It's understandable, but I mean, it's
just-
Atlanta next. I mean, good game to see whether or not, at least injury wise, is it going to affect his play. Now again, mindset. That's something we'll just have to see.
This definitely feels
Tough
like
to
a
predict.
get right game for the Bucks as a whole going
For
into
sure.
this next week. But speaking of QBs, guys, I think Eric, you put this in here. We got an interesting question on would you rather right now. And when I say these names, it sounds ridiculous at first, but then when you actually think about it, it's not so ridiculous. Would you rather, let's just go rest of the season, so redraft right now, have Matt Stafford or Jared Goff? Richmond?
If we're looking at right now, I'm taking Jared Goff. I think they have the weapons and the terrible defense that goes along with needing to put up a lot of points. And he's been able to roll with whoever he has to throw with so far. Hawkinson stepped up and with Amon-Ra being out. I think he has the guys right now, and I don't know what's happening with the Rams, but I can tell you my Allen Robinson shares are poor.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like Jared Goff, rest of the season. I mean, Stafford doesn't look great unless he's throwing it to Cooper Cup. I mean,
Yeah.
look, it really just seems like he can't throw it to anyone else. Um, Patrick, does this change in Dynasty at all?
Uh, actually, I mean, going into the season, I probably would have said give me Stafford over Goff, but granted, 4 game sample size, I'm jumping ship. I'm with Goff now. He's younger. Like Richmond just said, the way that offense is shaping up, it's looking fantasy friendly. Don't know what's going on with Stafford in that offense. I know he produced last year, but a lot of changing pieces there, and it just something seems off. It might be that surgery he had. Maybe he's just not comfortable yet. Maybe it's just something we haven't talked about enough. But Dynasty, I mean, I'm in on Golf. Got him in one league.
Yeah, for sure.
For some reason, might be trying to trade him for a first round pick is what my partner in the league said we're trying to do. But
We're tooling with the idea.
I don't disagree with that.
At this stage, I don't know. I may want to keep him now.
I mean, depending on your QB situation, for sure. Eric, do you think Matt Stafford's elbow injury that he was dealing with coming into the year is playing a role here?
I don't see that very much. What I see more so is his offensive line just being awful. I mean, he's got really no chance as a pocket passer to throw the ball. And I think that he's really missing a strong run game, which he lost in Cam Akers' injury. So I think, coupled with lack of options on offense like Goff has, and just a horrible offensive line, Stafford, who is older, he's not that mobile. He never has been that mobile. I think he's just really struggling to get in a rhythm and produce for you as a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with all y'all. I think rest of the season, Jared Goff, and the question about dynasty is a lot closer than people would like to admit right now. All right, let's move on to the real big injury of the week. Javonte Williams tore his ACL, LCL, and posterior lateral corner. Richmond, what does all that mean exactly, and how are we feeling about Javonte Williams? Obviously not for this year, but in the future.
So we all know the ACL. May not all know the LCL. LCL's what holds together kind of like the outside portion of your knee. More familiar, most people are with like the MCL on the inside. The posterior lateral corner is a actual bundle of structures. So this is one people might not have heard about before, but there's a few main structures that it comprises, but it's a lot of small ligaments and muscles and tendons that kind of help hold together that posterior lateral corner of the knee. The significance of this is that it requires surgery to fix, as does the ACL, as maybe does his LCL, but it's a pretty significant surgery. It's not something most people probably see too much. I've only seen a handful of them in my time working, and they've all been pretty big undertakings of therapy that have definitely taken well over a year to get back from. I was not seeing NFL players for it, but I can tell you I know a lot of people are comparing this injury to J.K. Dobbins because he had the ACL LCL combination, and I've also seen it compared to RG3's knee surgery. I would say probably with the posterior lateral corner thrown in there, much more significant than J.K. Dobbins surgery and what he had going on. The posterior lateral corner is probably more significant of a surgery than the ACL surgery it is itself, in my opinion. So I would not be very hopeful of him coming back anytime soon. And his long-term ability to be an effective running back, I think, is pretty at risk at this surgery. I know a lot of people were pretty happy with J.K. Dobbins' ability to come back quickly with a multiple ligament surgery, but I think this is going to be more significant than that one was. So next year, is going to be even a rough start for him. I think it'd have to look further out if we're hoping for him to come back.
I mean, even Dobbins didn't come back that quickly. He tore everything in the preseason, and then it took him this was week 4, and this was his first real action. So it took him well over a year to get back to. And if this is even anything similar, then that's at least I think that's the time frame we're looking at. So I mean, Javonte.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider it like 18 months for this kind of surgery potentially to get back from.
But this brings up a question about what do you do with him in Dynasty? He's still holding at like that RB 7-8 range right now. We'll see if that drops. That's according to Keep Trade Cut. But knowing this, Patrick, I mean, he's gonna miss this year for sure. We're all thinking he's gonna miss a portion of next year, it sounds like. And then is he really the same after that? So, I mean, you're looking at maybe 2 years later before he's actually able to be the running back we're hoping he can be. I mean, we still haven't actually seen it because Melvin Gordon's been a pest in his side so far. So, I mean, Patrick, how are you feeling with Javonte on a dynasty outlook?
On a dynasty outlook, I mean, you probably spent a decent draft pick to take him. So it's going to be hard to just cut bait or, someone's probably going to offer you a 4th, 5th round pick to see if they can snag them from you and just stash them. I'm going to stash him. He's out this year, and that's all the estimated timetable would be like week 12 of next year if he was early in the rehab recovery process. I don't see him actually coming back unless they were potentially challenging for a playoff spot and making a playoff run, and he was an asset. Because just like JK, they took their time with it. The timeline fit to where he could return beginning of season, but if Williams is coming back late season, I don't see them pushing it. That's the hard part, though, with Dynasty. This is one of those injuries we don't have a lot of, comparable players to. So it's kind of hard to dictate, all right, is he going to return to what his potential would be? And like you just said, what is his true potential? This was supposed to be the season we found out. I mean, I'm keeping him. I'm not cutting him. I'm not trading him. I got him in a couple of dynasty leagues. I'm going to hold tight. Cross my fingers he has a healthy recovery, can maybe show back up and be a solid, flex contributor on a dynasty squad. But that potential RB1, RB2 hope, for me, it's probably slim at this point.
It's really given me like the Cam Akers vibes right now. I know it's 2 completely different injuries. I know Cam Akers was an Achilles and this is a multi-ligament knee injury. But it's kind of the same where this running back entered the NFL, has all this potential, showed flashes their rookie year, but never really was that RB1 that everyone wanted them to be. Gets injured their second year. Right now we're seeing Cam Akers really just seems like he doesn't have it. I mean, he's getting like 0 yards carry. I mean, maybe that goes into the offensive line issues that we've talked about and everything like that. But it's definitely a worry for me going forward with Javonte Williams. But saying all this, it looks like Melvin Gordon's going to be the guy, old Melvin Gordon himself. So, Eric, how are we feeling about Melvin Gordon?
Decent. I mean, I think if you just ignore the age, like he's put up the numbers that you've wanted to from a 1B back. I think he will be thrust into the full-time role. The coaches have all validated that. And he has been the guy that has kept Javonte Williams, who is this fantasy prodigy, from achieving workhorse production. So I think there's a lot to be said about that. I think that if you're holding Melvin Gordon for some reason on your roster, you're probably not going to be able to trade him for what you want to trade him for. So just ride the wave. I think he's going to produce at, RB2, RB3 numbers. And I think he'll give you a good shot at winning some games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's going to be the RB1 for that team now. I'm not betting on Mike Boone or recently signed Latavius Murray to be the workhorse, barring a Melvin Gordon injury now, which he has shown he can get nicked up and maybe miss a game or two. So, but yeah, another one to mention, Jonathan Taylor. This is a big one this week. He just couldn't get back from his ankle injury. It seems like to me, if this was a Sunday game, he would have been back. It's just he couldn't get back on that short week. My big question to all three of y'all is basically who is the backup? Is it Nyheim Hines' role to lose now? Is Deion Jackson maybe going to take a big step in this? Or does Philip Lindsay actually get playing time again? Eric, what do you think?
I think it's pretty substantially Nyheim Hines. I mean, all offseason, the drumbeat from the coach, the head coach, was that Nyheim Hines needs to get more touches. Every time that he's been given this type of role, he's performed at pretty good rate for your fantasy team. So I think that it's going to be his game. He's a productive pass receiver, and he can run the ball too. So, I think it will be a bit of a timeshare. He's not going to get the Najee Harris workload, but if you're going to trust one guy in that backfield, it's Nyheim Hines.
I do have one comment on Jonathan Taylor to watch out for. I've also seen reports of him having a turf toe. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We mentioned it last. Was it last week? I think we kind of mentioned it that he popped up with a toe injury, and then he was taken off the injury report like the next day. He was given like a rest day with it. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's something to look out for.
Yeah, I didn't see if it was the same side or not, but I think that's just something to, if he has these mounting lower leg injuries, that could be kind of like combining for him to hold him out of these games.
I mean, yeah, Rich, I think you're right. I mean, and I think that that's why they probably made the decision to keep him out this Thursday, as added evidence to make that choice, where keeping him out on this short week, he'll actually have a very long time until his next game. So the turf toe injury can clean up. This weird ankle injury can clean up. I think it just added to that decision.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just giving him an extra bye week.
Yeah.
Right now to get healthy and be the Jonathan Taylor that we all want him to be. In other news, Cordero Patterson ended up on the IR. I really couldn't find many reports on exactly what his knee injury is, but he's on IR, so he's going to miss about 4 weeks at least. Patrick, I think Tyler Algier is going to step up and be that running back for the Atlanta Falcons now. Do you agree, disagree, or how you feeling?
I'm with you on it. I tried to grab as much of him as I could on the waiver wire this week in the redraft leagues. I mean, Patterson has been doing all right this year, but when he went out, I mean, Algier, 10 carries, 84 yards, got a target and a catch. It seems like he looked pretty good stepping into that role. So I can see him. I mean, I'm not going to say, hey, he's going to be a top 10 running back, but if you need to throw him in your flex, roll the dice. I can see it happening.
I really thought about making him my flag plant of the week. The only reason I didn't was because they're playing the Bucs.
I was going to mention that, but it might be a tough first week. So, again, if you didn't get him on the waivers or something, or if you did and he has a bad week, don't drop him right away. Just look at his usage. Hey, but if he does perform against the Bucs, that will say something about him.
Yeah, I agree completely. If he performs against the Buccaneers, that's going to be quite the coming out party for him, and he might not relinquish this running back role the rest of the year at least.
No.
Other note, Breece Hall kind of ended up on the injury report. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious. It's listed as a knee, but they've even come out and said that, hey, he's just kind of dealing with some bumps and bruises. Like, it's really nothing serious. I'm going to take him at face value unless y'all got something y'all want to say about it, but I think it's young. I think he's turning into that workhorse for them and kind of overtaking Michael Carter. And so I think they're just trying to give their young guys some work. Interesting note: DK Metcalf had the injury scare over the weekend, but it turned out he just needed to go poop. Everyone saw him go into the locker room on the cart, and Twitter had a field day. And then it turned out he just needed to go to the restroom. So that just goes to show: don't always freak out if you see someone riding on the cart to the locker room.
Everybody poops.
Everybody has to poop sometimes, especially in a game. You get hit in the stomach. It just it happens. You got to go now. But moving on, Jahan Dotson, the rookie for the Washington Commanders.
Yep.
I had to catch myself there.
Good job.
I'm trying. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. It already sounds like he's going to miss at least a week or two. To me personally, I feel like Terry McLaurin's going to get more love now. But Richmond, do we think it's the Terry McLaurin show now, or maybe does someone step up like Diami Brown?
I'm not going to count on Diami Brown for stepping up there. I think it's going to be the McLaurin show. Honestly, I think they're all limited by having Carson Wentz as their quarterback, but hopefully he can get it back around so that he's playing well again. But I'm not a huge Carson Wentz fan, so it's hard for me to really be able to trust. But I think if anybody, it's going to be McLaurin.
I think more Samuel, honestly.
Yeah, I'm a big Samuel fan too.
They've had a good connection. Big play wise, yeah, McLaurin's going to get all those big shots. But I also did see a report that Wentz apparently is on a short leash now. Pressure is on Rivera for his job.
Well, that was early.
Could we get Heineke? Would it be him?
The
Corral,
inside,
or who's our guy?
No, it might be Howell.
Yeah,
Howell.
Oh.
It was one of those reports.
Did you just howl?
Rumors.
I did.
I have a feeling if they lose the next two games, yeah, Rivera might very well be out, and they might just run with the rookie.
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
sure.
at that point, why not?
Throw him out there, see what he can do.
Trade for Cooper Rush while we're at it.
As a Cowboys fan, I do not agree. Anyway, Traylon Burks popped up with turf toe. Eric, if you're not frozen, okay, good. Eric, tell us what turf toe kind of is, and then who's gonna kind of step up. If anyone,
I mean,
not like he's been doing much.
No, I mean, turf toe is really tough and tough to recover from. It's not something that you can necessarily push through when it's that sensitive. I mean, really, it's a stressor of what's called the volar plate. That's just something that protects your big toe from hyperextension. So it's tougher for guys who really need to plant on their forefoot like that, especially for Traylon Burks, who's a heavier guy, and that plays into the mechanics of this injury. So, I think that they're going to have to rest him for a few weeks, and that's going to really impact his ability to develop as a receiver. He's already one of those receivers who is slow to develop, his route tree. And, I think when it comes down to the next man up, you're probably looking at just more Derrick Henry, who, for whatever reason, has developed his passing game. I mean, he's really been soaking up a large target share as somebody who's just been known as, a workhorse ground and pound running back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think any excuse Tennessee can use to get the ball into Derrick Henry's hands more often, they're going to take that chance and just ride him into the ground. He is getting up there in age, kind of getting to that age of teams just, hey, we know you're not going to be around forever, so let's just see how much we can get out of you while you're here. So, yeah.
Our passes doing more lately too. Past two games, 6 and 5 targets with 5 and 3 catches. I mean, they're using them more in passing game compared to the first two games. So,
for sure. And they get Washington this week, I believe, who has not had the best defense in the world this year. But anyway, Rashad Bateman for the Ravens has also ended up on the injury report. He's kind of dealing with a mid-foot issue. He was a non-participant today. Richmond, what do you think is kind of going on with Bateman's foot? They haven't really given us a lot of information to go off of.
Yeah. So what I have on that is that Harbaugh says he's day to day with like a midfoot, possibly another turf toe guy I've seen. He's been in a walking boot. I'd say look at practice tomorrow and see what he does. Um, right now, he's pretty far up there as in fourth in the NFL in yards per route run. So I think he's sitting behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and one other guy out there, and that's that. So he's definitely somebody that if he can go and he takes off that injury designation, that he's somebody to start. But I would see what he's doing tomorrow if he's able to get back out there on the field.
Yeah, for sure. Patrick, who's the next man up for them if Bateman ends up not actually being able to play this week?
Duvernay, I believe. He's been kind of trucking along there. He had a good target share last week, 5 targets, 4 receptions. He's been being found. Now, that being said, Mark Andrews, obvious, and then Isaiah Likely, the other tight end there. Personally, I do like him. Eric kind of turned me on to him earlier this season, preseason, and seems like, I don't know, they like to run 2 tight end sets a lot, and if Bateman's not there, they might do that just a little bit more.
Yeah, Devin Duvernay has kind of been quietly good this year. Like, I mean, he hasn't had just a monster week, but I've plugged him into some lineups and done all right with him.
Yeah, consistent.
Mediocre. Well, take what you can get. Take what you can get.
Negative points.
All right, let's go on to. We only have one tight end on the kind of injury report that at least I've seen. Kyle Pitts popped up with a hamstring issue today. Not that Kyle Pitts has not really been living up to the hype so far this year, but Eric, you're our resident hamstring hater, lover. I'm not sure. But
it's a love hate, yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel about Kyle Pitts ending up with this hamstring issue?
I mean, it's probably from all the wind sprints that they're having him run through during the games. It's like Kyle Pitts is, he's running tons of routes when it comes to relative to other elite tight ends, but he's just not getting the ball. I think that this is probably precautionary. This is the first that we've seen of it, but it's late enough in the week where it could, if severe enough, it could be nagging, and it could either limit his snap count on Sunday, or it could just hold him out entirely.
Yeah, for sure. Especially these midweek hamstring injuries that pop up. It's hard to say exactly what it could be. It could just be, hey, I woke up, I felt a little tightness in my hamstring this week, and they're just being cautious with it. Or it could be actually something serious. I think Thursday, Friday is really going to be telling with the practice reports, especially when it comes to Kyle Pitts. Guys, there's a lot of updates, and I'm not going to hit them all, but there's just some names to look out for. Amon-Ra St. Brown did not play last week with his ankle injury. He was also a non-participant today. Keep an eye out for him going forward. Keenan Allen with his hamstring injury that he just can't seem to get back from. Michael Thomas with a foot, toe, something he's dealing with, lower body. Who knows? DeAndre Swift still dealing with stuff. Actually, fun note now of someone actually returning from injury. Brian Robinson, the running back for Washington, who they drafted in the 3rd round and looked like he was overtaking Antonio Gibson in the preseason, and then was a victim of a carjacking that he got shot in the legs, is finally off IR and eligible to return. Patrick, how do you feel about Brian Robinson returning?
Optimistic, but maintaining caution there. I mean, again, he is returning from a gunshot. Sounds like he's recovered very well. The gunshot injury was minor from what it seems like for a gunshot. But it seems like he's been progressing well, assuming he can return to what he was prior to that. I mean, he can potentially offer us a solid split with Gibson. Now, Gibson's been, I think, doing a fair job. I wouldn't say he's lost his job yet, but he's going to have to show up a couple more weeks to maintain that job. If he starts, slowing down or fumbling, whatever his issues this season will probably end up being, Robinson will get that chance. And then as long as he's healthy, I could potentially see him taking it. But again, cautious.
Yeah, I agree. So that's exciting. Zach Wilson returned last week. So did J.K. Dobbins. Although it is worth mentioning, Gus Edwards has now going to be returning soon. He's eligible to return. So something to keep an eye out on. Guys, that pretty much does it for the injuries. Did I miss anything or anything that y'all seen? No? Okay. Let's move on. Let's do our flag plants of the week. Once again, for everyone, this is kind of the guys that we are just, yes, they are going to hit this week because of maybe they're stepping in from injuries. Let's start with you, Eric.
My guy as a resident Washington, D.C. fan is Terry McLaurin. I know that this is the section of our show where we try and list the lesser named players, but Terry McLaurin has been a sub 30 wide receiver 30 receiver on the year, so I think that it's fair. He plays the Titans at home in DC, and the Titans' defensive efficiency is 21st in the league. They're getting burned by the big plays at a higher rate than the league average. Terry McLaurin this year has lived on the deep ball, and with Jahan Dotson soaking up most of the red zone targets, or a significant portion of the red zone targets, being out this year with his hamstring injury, I think that this is going to be T-Mac's breakout game for the season. I would start him with confidence this week.
I agree. I'm definitely playing him in DFS, so if that's if that makes anyone feel any better about it.
Game.
Yeah, I actually have money on it. So, Patrick, do you have a flag plant of the week?
I mean, again, like Eric said, try and do lesser names, but I'm going to put Teddy Bridgewater. I'm going to say he's top 10 this week playing the Jets. So if you have him, start him. I'm going to go top 10.
Richmond.
So my guy was for the Jaguars. If Zay Jones was going to be out again, Jamal Agnew was going to be my guy. But I think it looks like Zay Jones got a good practice in, or at least a limited practice in today. So he's likely going to play. But I think Trevor has really good rapport with Jamal Agnew when he's able to be like a main target for him. So if we're going to go away from that with Zay Jones practicing, I think we're going to have to see what Melvin Gordon can do with the Broncos. I think that, like you guys said, he's been a thorn in Javante's side the whole time. So maybe this will be his chance to really take hold and kind of look like he did of yesteryear. I know he's getting up there a little bit, but I think
many yesteryears.
All the yesteryears.
Maybe not Chargers.
Decade.
Like Melvin Gordon, but I think he'd be my guy to keep an eye on.
Well, I'm not going to lie, guys. Y'all mentioned the three names I considered for my flag plant of the week. Terry McLaurin, Teddy Bridgewater, and Melvin Gordon. So I don't really have a flag plant of the week then. If I had to be, I guess, the tiebreaker, I'm saying Teddy B would be mine. I mean, he's throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So that's definitely going to help. But I really like all y'all's picks. So We're going with him. Put money on it. Melvin Gordon, 3 touchdowns. Right? No? Okay. Anyway, let's move on to trivia real quickly. On the year, Richmond, you are leading 3-1 for Patrick and Eric. Now, I do have 2 questions for y'all this week. Let me get my notes out. Okay, we mentioned Kyle Pitts today, who was a first-round tight end because everyone loves a good first-round tight end because they're going to get that work. My question to y'all is, and there's actually going to be 2 answers here, and I'm wondering if Richmond, I'm assuming he can still hear me. Okay, good. Who were the last tight ends before Kyle Pitts drafted in the first round? And there's actually 2 answers, and I'll even give y'all a little hint. They were both drafted in 2019.
I got it.
Eric, do you have it?
You need both tight ends drafted in the first round.
You know what? We'll give 1 point each.
Noah Fant.
Ding, ding, ding. Noah Fant is the correct answer.
And Hawkinson.
And Hawkinson. Very good. Very good. Now I'm wondering if that was too easy. Because
I was going to go with Vernon Golston, so I'm thinking way back too far. So
I had Hawkinson.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Fant was first round.
Yeah, Fant was first round as well. All right. My next question is, and this will also be worth 2 points. Jameis Winston's still dealing with his back issue. We'll see if he can play this week, but Andy Dalton stepped in for him. In what draft was Andy Dalton taken, and in what round was he taken? Does anybody know?
Was it 2010?
It was not 2010. You are incorrect, sir.
You fool.
Damn.
I don't know. I'd just be throwing something out there.
I'm going to say 2011.
Richmond is correct with the 2011. All right, Richmond, you're the only one that'll get this. Do you know what round he was taken in?
3rd.
It was not the 3rd.
No,
It was the second
total
round.
guess. Second. Okay.
It was
I
the
knew
second
he was
round.
not a first round. The Red Rocket coming out of TCU. Pat, that's
Yep.
your brother. How do you not know? Come on.
I was
Yeah.
a year off. My bad.
Well,
2010, 2011 was a blur.
Soul
My bad.
Sisters.
well, Patrick, you're only still sitting at 1 point this
I'll
year.
get another one.
I believe in you.
don't.
Richmond, you're at 4 now, and Eric, you close the lead a little bit. You have 3.
Woo!
So we got a solid game going on the year now. Guys, that pretty much does it for our show. Patrick, let's start with you. Do you have any last words for anyone, and where can people find you?
So same little Twitter handle as last week, PM Deli 19. Still working on that new one. The hurricane came through last week and just kind of hurricane party got the best of me, so did not get around to changing it. But no, other than what I said about Teddy Bridgewater, top 10 this week. Run with him.
I like it. Richmond, where can people find you?
People can find me at RP Laterio, DPT, on Twitter. As I said before, not a whole lot of fantasy content there, but a whole lot of injury information and physical therapy type links I post up there. And then you can always follow my track team. So if you guys have interest in track and field, which is probably not, but if you do, it's a place for you.
Ooh, I like that tagline.
That was nice. That was very nice.
It acknowledges that we don't have interest in it, but all right. I'm the Nighthawk PT. You can find me on Twitter at @FF_Nighthawk.
Nice. And I'm Matt. I'm at Fantasy Ferret on Twitter, and pretty much I only talk about fantasy football. Occasionally, I talk about my ferrets on there. Um, anyway, that pretty much does it for our show. This was fun. Yeah, check out Gridiron Ratings. They're the ones that are helping us this year get this show up and running and helping us through it all. So please check them out. Other than that, everyone have a good one.